Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness with co-hosts John McCaskill and Will Schneider. Each week, we take an authentic dive into how mindfulness continually impacts our lives, deepens our relationships, and allows us to be emotionally alive. We filter all of our conversations through the man box, where we unpack how as men we are expected to act in society, how fighting the authentic human experience is exhausting and damaging, and how mindfulness can help. Now, on to the show.
All right. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness. John McCaskill and Will Schneider here. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that is near and dear to both of our hearts. It is the difference between bosses and leaders. And we'd really love for some engagement from the LinkedIn and the Facebook group. We believe that you guys all have your opinions, thoughts on bosses and leaders, the differences between them, the good and bad. Love to hear from you. But before we get into that, Will, welcome, buddy. Good to see you.
Okay, I'm off mute.
You're off mute.
How you doing, John?
I think you're on mute was like the number one said thing in 2020 because of so many people doing Zoom calls. So
how mindful of you to mention that, John. That's a really interesting observation there, right? But I'm doing good, John. I gotta say, I feel it's a little weird not doing show for a week. It's
I know.
Like, I'm like,
I feel out of
I'm
sorts.
not
Even that intro, I felt a little nervous.
I know, same here. It's like, oh, what happened to our groove, you know? But it's good to be here, John. Like you said earlier, I am so excited for this topic. This has been, we're both a big fan of great leadership coaches like Simon Sinek we're going to bring up today. I don't know. So it's good to be here, John. And thank you for everyone tuning in. We already have like 16 or 17 people on, and we're going to look for your participation today. Talking about bosses and leaders, and because we really want to see, because we're all working in some capacity. So I think we can all, contribute to this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much of what we've talked about in past episodes with compassion and empathy and grit and resilience, those are all parts of leadership, and definitely want to tie that into the conversation today, and definitely want to see what the comments are here. So when you see me looking off to the side, it's not that I'm tuning out. It's that I'm trying to read the comments. So bear with me.
Same here, John. I'm not blowing you off, John, and checking text messages.
That's right. We're still in the show. We're still in the show.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, man, let's kick it off with our normal grounding. I'd love to get grounded. Like you said, we're kind of out of sorts because we skipped a week. And coming back and just getting back into that space and settling our minds and bodies, nervous systems, just recalibrating would be great, man. So I'll kick it over to you.
Great. I got to say, John, like your kitchen is very soothing to me. I don't know why. The colors and the countertops. Your wife.
My wife redid that whole thing.
Did a great job.
It's just nuts, man.
You killed it. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, man. I'm gonna have to show her this show because now she sees her kitchen on the show.
Respect, John. Respect. Okay. Good. So let's find your seat. We're also sensitive if you're like shopping and listening to the podcast, and just try to make some mindful contact with yourself. So feel your feet on the floor. If you're sitting down, feel the way your sit bones are rooting into the chair. Try to create a longer spine. Lift up your chest. Pull your back off the chair. Or if you're standing up, just try to stand up more erect. And you can close your eyes if it's available to do that. And let's just start with a nice little exhale out through the throat and out through the mouth. Good. And just take a big, giant breath. Biggest breath you've taken so far today. Inhale really big. Bigger if you can. Exhale out the throat and the mouth. Let's just do a couple more of those, just tapping in to a nice soothing quality of breath, and exhale out. One more big breath in. And exhale, let it go. And for this one, let's just work with a simple grounding and centering breathing technique called this triangular breath. It's triangular because it just has 3 parts of it. We're going to inhale for 5 seconds, hold our breath for 5, exhale slowly for 5, and repeat this just 3 times. Right? So let's exhale the breath out to start. You can push it out through the nose, and all the breath's going to flow in and out of the nose to this. So exhale out the nose. Take a big inhale for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold that breath for 5, 4. Try to relax the face, jaw, and shoulders as you hold. And exhale, let it go out. 5, 4. Slowly flowing through the nose. 2, 1. Repeat. Inhale big for 5. Holding 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 5. Good. One more big inhale. 5. Holding 5. Exhale slowly. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Come back to a nice, smooth, flowing breath. And just check in how you're feeling emotionally right now. Just check in. No judgment. Just notice. And use that breath as a focusing tool to just tap in and notice how you're feeling. Good. And one breath to open up the show. Exhale out. In really big breath. And exhale, sigh it out. Yeah. And open up the eyes when you're ready. And how are you feeling, John?
Great, man. Great as always. I did a meditation early this morning and that got me set. But then because I'm not doing this from our normal space, I'm doing it from my home. Sometimes I have connectivity problems. I got a little anxious starting the show. And then as I hit stream, I was like, here we go. What's going to happen? So my heart rate went up, my respiratory rate went up, and then you just settled me back down. So I appreciate that, brother. It's always good to see that we are in control of our stress reactions. See that we can do a simple breathing drill like that triangle breathing drill, box breathing, triangle breathing, just focusing on your breath, how that can calm you down. It's fantastic. So thank you for that, man. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm always feeling better off after a grounding exercise and just breathing. I see John, one of our listeners, says John Warnock says he feels centered.
There you go.
Great, and that's why I feel centered too, because it allows me just to focus and really stay on point and also it helps me to open up, John, to just be more authentic, be more vulnerable, and just really try to, serve with this podcast, because this is what we're trying to do here. So
and servant leadership, right there with John Warnock and Seth Price both said something very similar in servant leadership or selfless leadership. And, those are definitely some great differences between bosses and leaders, which we're going to get to in more depth here in a second. But Will, what was your mindful moment for the week?
John, I've been waiting to talk about this for a while. So, so coming back to this confined masculinity, toxic masculinity, I'm becoming more and more aware of oh my God, it is really everywhere. It's so incredibly pervasive. And this brings me to, I don't know if you've seen the movie or the series Chernobyl.
Oh yeah.
Excellent. Right. I mean, excellent movie, but a lot of the problems, or they could have probably prevented so much of the death and destruction if it wasn't for toxic masculinity. And I mean, one piece of the movie that I thought was very, very telling to I mean, there's like toxic masculinity throughout. It's all, you can see people not wanting to be wrong, not wanting to seem like they're weak, always trying to be in that authority, dominating, aggressive, way of doing things, and always trying to aspire to that grunt level of masculinity. Or almost, I want to say, that ignorant level of masculinity. And there's one piece of the show that I thought was really telling about it, was in the beginning, and I'm not giving away any of the show, you'll see it right away. The very, very beginning, that first episode, when they're having all these problems and the meltdown is happening, and the explosion has already occurred in the reactor. The leader in that control room says, he asks about a particular reading of the nuclear reading, or I forget the radiation that's being released. I don't know if anyone knows that. What's the name? It's like Rory or something like that. He asked what the level of Rory or something, whatever that term it is, and he goes, the one guy says, "Oh, it's 3.6," and was gonna say something else, right? And the man cut him off immediately and says, "It's 3.6." So everyone is getting this reading that was completely fictitious, because the meter only went up to 3.6, right? When it was actually at 15,000, which is like incredibly damaging to everything on our planet. And they just took that one number, and then it just went from the next man to the next man, all the way up. And they just, thankfully, they were able to avoid some of the problems, but they could avoid a lot of problems just in those initial moments of because of toxic masculinity. So that was really interesting to be mindful of this week. So
for sure. And that ties directly into our conversation here with leaders versus bosses. That one guy, if I watched it about 6 months ago, and I remember that one guy being really aggressive and dominant, and basically telling everybody to shut up. Anyone that countered him, hey, shut up. And was he a boss or was he a leader? And I think we all know which kind of column he falls into there.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. So mine doesn't have to do with leadership. As a dad, so many of my mindful moments have to do with being a dad. And mine had to do with last night. My little girl, almost 4 years old, had a rough night. And I went down there to help her get back to bed. And I laid next to her in the bed. She's got a big bed for a 4-year-old. She's got a queen size mattress.
Oh my God, John, that's awesome.
It's a little overkill, but it was our old mattress, and rather than throwing it away, we gave it to her. Anyway, bottom line is, I lay in the bed with her for a little while, and then I started to sneak away because I thought she was asleep, and she grabbed my arm and she was like, "Dada, don't go." And I was like, "Oh, great." In my mind, I was like, "Great. Now I've got to lay here for longer." And then I was like, wait, what an awesome opportunity this is. 15 years from now, heck, probably 5 years from now, I'm going to wish that I had an opportunity to lay in the bed next to my little girl. And I don't want to squander that opportunity. So I lay there, and then I ended up falling asleep, and I slept there the rest of the night in the queen size bed. But yeah, that was my mindful moment is, hey, John, check your thoughts, man. Check your perspective. And appreciate this, and rather than being angry, which is probably why you can see bags under my eyes today.
No, you look great, John. You look like a typical father to me with bags under your eyes. Just kidding.
True.
Playing.
No, that's hilarious. Well, man, that's an awesome mindful moment of yours with the Chernobyl, and it ties right into the show, and talking about the columns of leaders versus bosses, something that you sent out on social media earlier today. I would like to ask the audience, and let's go through some of the comments here really fast before I bring this up. We've got men talking mindfulness, toxic masculinity. So Gabrielle, if you'll check out our shows a couple of weeks ago, we had some great shows on toxic masculinity, and we've got some interesting ones. One coming up next week with Ed Adams and Ed Fraunheim. Reinventing masculinity. They're going to be on the show, so please tune in next week. Seth Price says, best leaders that has gained the best outcome of the workforce during my serving in armed forces has always had a servant leadership. Yep. And anyway, there's a couple other comments there. So Great stuff. So I'm going to bring up this. Let's see. Hopefully the technology will work. Hopefully you're looking at the two columns there, boss versus leader. And we're going to talk about several of these here, but definitely we talked about toxic masculinity, talked about the guy in Chernobyl. You look down that boss column, whether it's a female or a male boss, if they're mirroring any of these, that's a lot of the same stuff that we've talked about in the toxic masculinity shows. So Will,
why don't I read the boss and you read the leader?
Oh,
right?
I like that.
Just for our listeners out there. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll be the boss, right? And the boss.
Beat your chest.
I know. I listen to nobody, the boss, right? Okay. So here's this list of this, the boss side of things. And the boss is someone that demands, relies on authority, issues ultimatums, says uses people, takes credit, places the blame, says go, and also my way is the only way. So that's the boss. So think about, that's the boss, and think about those people in your life that have been like the boss. And what about the leadership?
So what I'll do is I'll read the leader column, and then I'm going to come back and compare and contrast the two columns so you can actually see where the two are significantly different. Right. So the leader coaches, relies on goodwill, generates enthusiasm, says develops people, gives credit, accepts blame, says let's go, and then there's strength in unity. So the boss demands, where the leader coaches. Right. The boss relies on authority, where the leader relies on goodwill. The boss issues ultimatums, where the leader generates enthusiasm. The boss says I, where the leader says we. The boss uses people, where the leader develops people. The boss takes credit, where the leader gives credit. Boss places the blame, leader accepts the blame. Boss says go, leader says let's go. And then finally, boss, my way is the only way, and leader is strength and unity. And this particular comparing and contrasting, we pulled it from Facebook. David Avocado Wolf had this on their thing, but it's I believe that's something that you can find anywhere on the internet. That's where I pulled it from. I'm not sure where you pulled it from.
I got this years ago, John. Okay, I got this thing about like 7 or 8 years ago, and it's always been in the back of my mind. And it's I'm so happy to use it as a prop today for our show.
Definitely. Great. But I definitely wanted to make sure I gave credit to where I pulled it from, but it's probably not originally from there. So I've lost the comments on my on my feed.
I got you. I'm here.
Just make sure you're checking those. I'd love to know with the audience on this chart here, what really jumped out at them or makes them think about a particular person. We don't have to name any names, but does that make you think of a particular person and make you realize that person was a boss, or the inverse, that person was a leader? I'd love to know from the audience. And again, I've lost the comments. So Will, if anything pops up,
I'm watching, John. Well, tell me about, John, your experience with bosses and leader, or, I would love to hear, and I'm sure the audience too, John, I'd love to hear about, leadership in the military services, being a commander with the SEALs and what actually yielded the best results, kind of thing.
Well, I definitely had both bosses and leaders all along the way. And I tried to learn from all of them. I tried to learn basically from the bosses what not to do, and from the leaders what to do. And I feel there is in the military a great emphasis on developing leaders, but that doesn't prevent us from having bosses in the ranks. There definitely are bosses out there. But we even try to create leaders. And I think leaders are both born and created. I think it's hard to really turn somebody who has no leadership capabilities or no no empathy, no compassion, no desire to develop their people, it's hard to develop them into leaders, but it is possible. But you really have to have them do some of that deep introspective work. You have to show them that what they're doing is wrong, or that what they're doing isn't working. And the military does try to do that, but there's still people who slip through the cracks and end up in fairly high-ranking positions as bosses. But I still think, regardless of where you are in position, rank, or position in the hierarchy, you can be a leader. You can be a leader as the lowest ranking person in the organization of the military. So you can coach as a very junior person by being a great example, or caring enough to pull somebody aside and say, hey, look, this is how things can be done. This is how you could do better. You can generate the enthusiasm at the lowest level. You can always say you can always give credit. So that's another thing I think that is distinguishing between a leader and a boss. A boss relies heavily on their rank or their positional authority, whereas a leader is independent of their rank or positional authority. So yeah.
Well, how would so give us, can you have or maybe an example, or or speak to like your leadership style, John, because like you're a commander for like a long time. So, how are some of the interactions, or a specific example in which you kind of stepped up as boss or leader?
I'll say that I have been on both sides of that column as well, or I've been on both of those columns. At times I didn't realize that I was acting like a boss, which as I say that, I kind of laugh, because we all say, man, that dude's a boss, or she's a boss,
or an asshole, right?
Yeah, but normally it's used in a good context, right? But when you say that, there were definitely times I was on both of those columns. Let's see, specific anecdotes I'm trying to think of. I did try to, as a leader, really care for my people and show them that I cared for what they had going on in their lives, which we've talked about before, is empathy and understanding their feelings. And, one specific anecdote that just jumps to my mind right now is, we had one guy, we were living in Bahrain. I was the executive officer, which is second in charge of that particular organization. We had a guy whose grandmother had passed away. And normally the military will send you home to the funeral of an immediate caretaker. So like a parent, right? And this guy's grandmother was not an immediate caretaker, but since he had left home, his mother and father had kind of disowned him, but he still stayed in contact with his grandmother. And when she died, I pulled some strings and got him to get home for that funeral, because I saw that it was affecting him. It was weighing on his mind, and I knew that he was not going to be able to accomplish the mission if he didn't get home and kind of have that closure and reconcile the passing of his grandmother. And when he came back, he was so thankful, and he was one of the hardest workers in the organization, because he knew that he had a leader. And I'm not trying to like puff my own chest up, but he knew that not just myself, but my boss, my immediate senior, was also a great leader, and he allowed that to happen. So that was one example. Some of the times when I've been a boss was going through Navy SEAL training. There was a lot of time when I would demand a lot. So in training, you're divided into boat crews. So you have, I think it's eight or 10 guys. I forget. It's been a while, but I think it's about 8 guys that basically run underneath a boat, get out into the water in that boat, and everything you do is as a boat crew. And there were a lot of times I would demand stuff from my boat crew, and I don't think I had the experience at the time, or the true heart, the worldly experience, or the true heart to be a good leader. At the time I was a boss, and I didn't have the compassion. I didn't have that empathy. I didn't have the care to develop the people. I just like, hey, you know what? I want to get through this training. I want to get through this training.
Right. You're also a younger man too at this point,
Oh
John,
yeah,
right?
much younger, much younger, and full of.
I'm not saying you're old, John. Please don't take offense. Like,
I'm not.
I'm talking maturity, John. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, but absolutely. I mean, the wisdom that comes with age, the wisdom that comes with experience. I mean, after having served in the teams for a while, I definitely hope that people saw me more as a leader and less as a boss. So I'll flip it over to you, man. What about yourself? Have you ever had opportunities?
Yeah, I
to
have.
Be
like, I just want to say one thing about what you're talking about, and we're both a fan of Simon Sinek. He writes some great books on leadership. And one thing that I really appreciate, he says, he goes, leaders protect their people. Right? Leaders protect their people. And I've been, I have been in a leadership position, several times. I used to work at a pharmaceutical company where I was just more like I was a scientist, actually, John. I was like, my label was like a scientist working in the laboratories at a large pharmaceutical company back in the days when I got out of college and then went in the workforce before I doing what I'm doing now. I've definitely been exposed to bosses and leaders. The leaders, they both taught me a lot. This one guy I worked with as my closing days in the corporate world was one of the best leaders I've ever. I'm going to give him a shout out too. His name is Prem Patel, Prem Patel. I don't know if he's still where I work at GlaxoSmithKline, but one of the best people I ever met, one of the best leaders I've ever met. And his qualities of his leadership were just bringing people together, having conversations, not laying blame, trying to find problems, solutions to problems together. And I always felt a wonderful sense like he was protecting me, and he always had my back. Which is huge.
Huge.
And I've had I had people that have acted as bosses, that in the sense of like they would just always just tell me what to do and not really give a crap about how I'm feeling or what I'm doing or why, or even question why, just do, and coming back to that, like that list of, demanding, and, they were taking credit as well when like the team was actually growing and developing and doing things.
Yeah.
I've had an opportunity. I was a kind of a vice principal at this film school for a summer. So I had like 10 weeks. Yeah, it was cool. It was 10 weeks. I was working for the New York Film Academy back when they had these summer schools. And I worked a few summers, and I was asked that I think my second or third summer to actually be vice principal. So we'd have kids, about 400 or 500 kids that would come from all over the country and even all over the world to come to the school here in New York City. And I was asked to be like the first mate to a guy that I ended up knowing through work and working with him very well. And, as soon as I stepped into that role, all I wanted, like I went right into, it's like, how can I make the lives easier of everybody and create opportunities for success for the students and the teachers to really get along and do things to the best of their ability. And I was just literally, I felt like instead of just being like a leader, I felt like I was just the ultimate organizer for everybody else's success and their education. And it worked out. And it was about a year later or whatever Mike said, or maybe it was like shortly after the program, he was doing this. My friend Mike was leading this program. He was doing it for years and years, like I think 8 or 9 years at this point. When I joined on as his first mate, was actually asked by him to do it. And he goes, "This is the best summer we ever had." And I think it was because just really fostering that enthusiasm of team and really working to support and being being a servant leader. And I felt every day that I'd go home from that work. From that day, I would just feel great because I was doing the best I could, trying to help in the best ways that I possibly can. And you can just see the way that the teachers reacted to it, the way the students did. And it was just very fulfilling and rewarding in so many levels because I was just in that, I'm here to help, I'm here to support you. And I kind of like the whole thing, I got your back.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy at times. Yeah, it wasn't easy at times. There's definitely some, we had there were definitely some troubles we had in the program, but in creating a space, open space to talk about it instead of being like, you're wrong and you're an idiot and like, shut up and listen to me because I'm the authority. Like that doesn't work. So yeah, there's and I've definitely had some people that I worked with that are more boss-like, that just really, they're going after the metrics, they're going after the goal and what we should be accomplishing, and not really, understanding like, if they are just even just slightly human with me, John, and not trying to treat me like a number or a robot, I'm going to respond differently.
Yeah.
Because I've worked at I don't know, I've worked many different jobs and stuff over the years, and I definitely like a leadership style in working with people instead of more of like a boss style. And someone did mention here, I want to say, this is Michael. He goes, you can be both, a quasi-military unit. You can be both. Sometimes an asshole is required in a given moment, and it's true. There's definitely moments where we have extreme circumstances. There's always fringe circumstances where we go extreme in one direction or the other. And and sometimes you got to step up and be like, look, guys, you're not listening. This is the way we need to do it. Like, and just like really, I don't know if that is another style of leadership, I feel, but really like taking control, because as a leader you also have responsibilities, but what the goal is. And also I think, well, the way I conceptualize that is like knowing that to get to that goal is going to serve the group anyway. Right. Sometimes you got to really drive to that end, and sometimes you got to be strong and firm. And you might come off as a little bit bossy, but there's a reason there's bosses out there, John, because there's definitely some effectiveness in a boss sometimes, but not when it's so deeply into all those aspects or characteristics and values that we talked about earlier.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think, you hit something that brought me to this quote by Simon Sinek again. And I'll bring it back up again. You talked about a boss providing almost like security or protection. One of the guys that I work with in Malecon Man said, a leader providing that. And one of my buddies in Malecon Man said that a leader always provides time, trust, and top cover. So, like protects you from the fray, protects you from the people who are taking your time, and allows you trust as well. And I got a comment here from one of our viewers talking about, can you talk about fostering the element of trust with your people before leaders get to the point of being able to truly lead? I think that trust goes both ways, right? Those you lead need to trust you, and you need to trust those you lead. Right. And the way that I've always tried to instill trust and foster trust is by, as a leader, giving people authority, pushing that delegating that authority down, not the responsibility, but to delegate the authority to do something, empowering them. And then they see that you trust them enough to do it, right? And then when they do a good job, that develops your trust. That's, I think, is a good way of fostering trust and protection, and that time, trust, and top cover that I just mentioned there. But again, Simon Sinek's comment here is, a boss has the title and a leader has the people. I'm going to jump from one share to another, because this image here says that graphically. Hopefully it's shifted to that you can see the image on the left is a boss basically sitting on top of a chariot, telling the people pulling the chariot where to go, saying, hey, which goes back to our column where, hey, go versus let's go. Anyway, the picture on the left, boss sitting on top of a chariot, almost like whipping these people that are pulling the chariot, saying, hey, let's go rather than let's go. And then the picture on the right is the leader is down off the chariot, actually helping to pull, and he's the front runner, or he or she is in the front of that pack. And then underneath the picture, it says, a boss creates fear, a leader confidence, a boss fixes blame, a leader corrects mistakes, a boss knows all, a leader asks questions. And that hey, the boss knows all and a leader asking questions comes back to the toxic masculinity or the confined masculinity that we talked about last show, and we will talk about next show. Is a lot of the time men who are showing toxic masculinity are afraid to show that they don't know something. And that comes back to the Chernobyl incident where somebody was like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm not going to admit that I don't know that. Right. So I'm just going to beat my chest and act as though everything is fine. So that's where another spot where boss and leader is differentiated. And I'll stop sharing.
And also where vulnerability, authenticity, curiosity comes into play.
Great one.
Right. Instead of just like being the know-it-all, which it's like, with being the know-it-all, there's no space for anything new because you know it all. Right. Yeah. And it's just like, so there's nothing, you're not even listening, John. It was just, how about that? Would be a great attribute of leadership. It's just listening to your people. Yeah. It's like, that's a really big attribute to leadership, is just simply listening. And you mentioned trust, John, and, trust is gained through experience, trust is about 100% about relationship. You either have it or you don't. Right. There's kind of no in between, I guess, or maybe you're developing trust slowly is kind of the in between. But it's like, it's about giving respect and giving that same respect back to somebody else. And I love that you mentioned allowing other people to lead. Yeah. It's just like, hey, you take control of this. I got your back 100%. You take the reins. You let me know what you need from me. Right. And we'll see what the results are. And I've led a lot of yoga retreats. Like I've done, I don't know, 18 or 20 of them or something like that over the last 5 years pre-COVID. And, always in a big leadership position, like guiding sometimes many 40 people, and it's like, I just trust the team and trust the people that are there. And I always come back to allowing the community, right? Allowing the group to create the experience, and not just me, look at me, look what I'm doing, look how great all this is, look at a great time you're having because of me. That that doesn't, that's not where it's at. I thought, if I could say, or John, Lindsay, my assistant, she's commenting here, and it can really start very basic, boss versus leader, parents and teachers, right? Yeah. Have the ultimate opportunity to act as either a boss or a leader. And it's so true. It's not just in corporate setting, but it's in the household, it's in the classroom, it's in the playground, it's on the athletic fields out there.
Oh my gosh. And, that one, the athletic fields, both as a fellow player or as a coach. Yep. I look at my high school track cross country coach as a leader, and granted, he had a position that was definitely of authority over the team, right. But I still, to this day, I don't know, 30 something years later, no, 20, 25 something like that. Public math is bad. Anyway, so I still to this day look at him as a leader. I still to this day call him coach, because in my eyes, he's still a leader in my eyes. My parents are definitely. So Lindsay, thank you for that. My parents, I feel are leaders. And I'm reading Grit right now, Grit by Angela Duckworth. Great read if you're interested in grit. Mm-hmm. But she talks about Steve Young's parents and how Steve Young at one point, Steve Young, when he retired, was the greatest of all time. Now Tom Brady, I think, has trumped him. But at the time, Steve Young was the greatest of all time. And when you went back to his college days at BYU, he wasn't even a starter. He was one of the, defensive, basically tackle dummies. Right. And he wanted to quit, and he went back to his dad, and he's like, hey, I want to quit. And his dad was like, hey, you're not going to quit. You're not going to quit. You can, or rather you can quit, but you can't come home if you quit. And it seemed very authoritarian. But then Angela Duckworth actually goes and interviews Steve Young's parents, and they're like the most caring people in the world. And they just wanted to foster something in Steve that would allow him to be the best version of himself, whether that's a football player or whether that's whatever Steve Young wanted to pursue. But that goes back to the column, using people versus developing people. As parents, it's upon us, to develop people. And so many parents don't. So many parents are bosses as parents. But you can and should be a leader as a parent. So thank you for that comment, Lindsay.
Yeah. And sometimes you need to be a strong leader.
Oh yeah.
And that could be, like someone, I don't know, the way we're like trying not to clean up our language in the show. And now everyone's commenting to someone says a lovable asshole, right? That's one. So I don't know, that's like the fifth time we use the A word here. But that's all right. We're adults. It's okay. But sometimes you need to lead strong, like I talked about earlier, you know where you need to go, I've been on many hikes, like leading groups up, like we climbed up like almost, it was like 9,900 feet, almost 10,000 feet in Lake Atitlan in Guatemala. And it was 20 of us that first time. And it was quite a hike, and we didn't have enough water and this and that. Like, and I was like, we're going to that top, like we're going. And we got everyone up there. Even people were suffering with altitude sickness. But it was like people are turning green and vomiting. I'm like, oh my God, like I swear to God, it was really intense. But the group enthusiasm, I was actually, John, I was at the back of the pack. I was working with this other guy, my good friend Xander, if you listen, I miss you, brother. He's a great leader as well. Good friend of mine, great brother. He was at the front, I was in the back. Like he led, he was the engine, I was the caboose, right? And I didn't let anyone get behind me. I don't care how many times that person had to stop and vomit. I didn't care if we have to go back down the mountain. I was like, I'm here with you. Let's go. I don't need to see the top. Like, are you doing all right? We can head back down. And I think just having that energy of support, right, got him through it. And we all ended up getting up almost an hour later from the first group to get up there. But we got to the top of the mountain.
Nice.
And it's from that support and it's from that camaraderie, but also, that feeling of protection and that feeling of someone having your back. And I think it's also, John, too, the leader lends his energy to other people, whereas the boss keeps it. When we bring in Ed and Ed, I'm sure they're going to say a lot of times, me and we, right? So it's not all about me all the time, which is like it's all about me. Then I'm just focusing my energy and my efforts and my thinking and all of my work on me climbing to that top, meeting that quota. And instead of like a leader lends his energy, how can we support? How can we, just think of the words like, I got your back, right? Yeah. I mean, think of the energy of that, like, cause you're behind them, you're watching them and helping them, just gently pushing them more forward if that's what they need, or just stopping or holding space for that person. That's, I think, another important distinction about boss and leader is energetically, like how they're, how you're being perceived and how you're being felt.
Yeah, lifting other people up, having their back, having their six.
There you go, right?
Yeah, that comes again back to that time, trust, and top cover, like protecting somebody and then giving that energy. I love that, man. That's absolutely true. Because when I have worked for a leader, and you referenced this before, when I have worked for a leader, I come home feeling more energized. I feel like I've done something with my day. I feel better about my day. Whereas when I work for a boss, like even getting there sucks the energy out of me. I remember driving into a parking lot, walking from the parking lot into the building and just being like, ugh, because of one person, one person. Yeah. They suck the energy out of me, and they suck the energy out of the whole organization. And you could tell, coming back to the metrics, that boss was all about metrics, but the metrics were dropping because he didn't put people first. And that's, that you'll hear that a lot in the military, is people first, mission always. But there's a lot of people that don't believe that. There's a lot of people that don't practice that, and they think about the metrics only, and that's the boss. So I want to come back to also where you talked about listening. I mean, here we are, men talking mindfulness. So a big thing about that is being present in the here and now. But a lot of bosses, when their people talk to them, are only thinking about the bottom line. They're only thinking about the metrics. They're thinking about the next meeting they have to be at. They're thinking about anything but what is being said by the person in front of them at that time. And again, coming back to the question that you asked of me earlier, hey, have you ever felt like you've been a boss or a leader? There have definitely been times when somebody was talking to me and I was barely listening to what they were saying. And at that time I was 100% being a boss.
Yeah.
And then after some time and experience in the teams, in the Navy, and just in life in general, I learned to listen to people in a lot better. But not only that, by practicing mindfulness, by being present in the here and now, tuning out the noise of what happened yesterday or what's going to happen tomorrow, that allowed me to pay more attention to my people, listen better. And because I heard what they were saying, I was able to be more compassionate because now I knew what they needed. So it comes full circle to Men Talking Mindfulness. You have to be mindful to really be a good leader. And coming back to Tom Brady, I think we saw something a week and a half ago where Tom Brady was attributing a great level of his success, both as a player and a leader on the field, to his practicing meditation.
There you go.
And that was when he only had 6 Super Bowl rings, and now he's got 7. And actually, Tom Brady is mentioned in Redefining Masculinity as well. And Steph Curry as well. It's just amazing the leaders that.
Steve Kerr.
Steve Kerr is mentioned, but then Steph Curry is mentioned later. But it's pretty incredible to see when you break down really effective leaders. What do? So many of them practice meditation, practice mindfulness, and that develops so much else. It develops the listening skills. It develops the compassion. It develops the caring. I guess those two are kind of redundant, but anyhow, it does develop a lot for a leader. So,
well, I think what you bring the whole listening, John, as well. Like, when you actually stop and listen to somebody, right? What does it do? It gives immediate respect. It requires vulnerability, right? It requires a sense of authenticity, a sense of instead of it just being like what you want it to be, right? You actually have to receive the other person's information, right? Process that information, and then speak back to that person authentically because you're listening to them. It's like a dynamic flow of information instead of it just being one-sided, right? And that's another thing about boss. Like, think of the energy flow between boss and the way we talked about it. Boss is just always pointing at probably out and down, right? There's other people. I'm better than you. You listen to me. Shut up. Just do what I say. And if I'm happy, everyone else is going to be happy, right? Instead of whereas leadership, it's a dynamic, energetic, respectful flow of information, situation, working. Also, listening is not even with your ears, John. It's can you pick up? I think it's maybe 12 or 15% of our expression actually comes through verbal expression, right? A lot of it comes from the nonverbal cues of looking at somebody, seeing where they are, seeing how they're feeling, what kind of quirks or tics that they're expressing at that time in their life, because if they're uncomfortable or stressed, and then listening to that information, and that could really, the first words out of your mouth, if you're approaching somebody that's having a difficult moment in their life, can really make a big difference if you just stop and listen to their energy, listening to their emotional life, and then asking a question or saying something to them that helps them, and the group. But it's so I think it's a really great point about listening and leadership, really big, because how many bosses do you know, right, that are listening at all?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It just doesn't even go really, the way we defined it. It's it's and I think also another thing about, boss versus leader, I would also say, John, it kind of also comes to that binary aspect of our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. I would think that the boss is deep in that fight, flight, or freeze sympathetic nervous system, because they're feeling the stress of probably their boss, right, that's above them and saying get to this metrics, finish this. Or even in the home life, it's you could have a father or a mother that's being very bossy because they're stressed out from work and this and that, blah blah blah, so they're not calm, cool, connected, relaxed, where I feel a leader having that ability to create space and that ability to be vulnerable and that ability to listen, is going to be in more relaxed state of mind, a relaxed state physically, and is going to be more open and present to the people and the situations and the environment around them.
Yeah, great point, man. Yeah,
yeah.
I think a boss, as you said, that they use that sympathetic nervous system and they see everything as a threat.
Right, there you go.
And they react
Great
to
point.
everything.
Right.
Rather than taking it on as what it is, an event happening, a task, a to-do, a deadline, rather than taking it as that and leading, they're taking it as a threat. And now they carry that threat forward. And basically, like that one picture with the chariot with the boss on top, he's kind of like, he or she is carrying that threat forward and making his or her people pay for it.
Right.
And that's a great point I'd never thought of, man.
Yeah, I didn't either until this moment, John.
Genius. Our heads just exploded.
Hey, in the moment, because I'm listening, John, because I'm listening
well done,
and I'm
well
receiving the information. We're getting a little close to time, John.
Yeah.
So, but I want to let the listeners know, and Jerry has Jerry Garrison has a question here. I don't know if I want to let the audience know that we're going to come back and do this later in the season. We're going to do part 2 of Boss versus Leader, because we feel that this is such a great discussion, and we hope it is. It sounds good to me, right? For everybody that's out there. But should we take this? What do you feel, John? Should we start to close, or should we go to Jeremy, or what do you think?
Let's see. We went to Jeremy before about the trust.
Oh, okay.
I want to go to Bobby Hanby really fast, because he's the guy who I mentioned earlier saying a good leader offers that time, trust, and top cover. I wasn't sure if I should give him credit, but hey, he's right here listening, so I want to make sure I give him credit for that. Great.
What's up, Bobby? Nice.
So great to have you, Bobby. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah. And then far and few between, Donna Michaels. I think the where that applies is leaders are far and few between, but when you find a leader, you know it, you truly know it.
Yeah.
And then applying pressure versus sharing the weight from Lindsay. That's
great. Thank you, Lindsay. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So great comments here. Thanks so much for the engagement from the audience. I was able to get my comments back. So that's always good.
Well, you know what? Just Jeremy says here, and we know what maybe we'll answer this next time, John.
Yeah.
So Jeremy says, John, can you talk about fostering the elements of trust with your people before leaders get to the point of being able to truly lead?
I'm going to slam you, bud. I'm going to slam you. I addressed that one.
Oh, you did? Oh, see,
you are being mindful.
Now I'm not listening. God damn. Sorry.
I love you, brother. I love you.
That's all right, John. I deserve that one big time.
No, all good.
All right, let's take it home, John.
Yeah, man. Yeah, let's try to do something based on leadership and boss. More the leadership side of things. So yeah, go ahead and get comfortable. If you feel comfortable closing your eyes, go ahead and do so. If not, just soften your gaze and look somewhere between 6 to 8 feet in front of you, not focusing on anything in particular. Bring your attention to your breath very intentionally, noticing the physical sensation of breathing in through your nose. And then the same, noticing the physical sensation as you breathe out through your mouth. Breathing in through your nose, noticing the air passing your nostrils. Imagining it going down and inflating your lungs. And then the reverse as you breathe out, coming up from your lungs, coming out your mouth past your lips. One more, deep down into your belly, noticing your belly and chest expanding. And then relax and let that go, nice and slow. And now visualize a leader. Visualize being a leader. Visualize being that leader that leads the team and doesn't push the team. Visualize being a part of the team, a we mentality versus a me mentality. Visualize listening to your people, being present in the moment with them, hearing what they say, knowing what they need, and then providing what they need. Think about being compassionate with them, understanding what they feel, and providing a way for them to come out of that. And visualize the team succeeding as a team and not as individuals. That is a leader. You are a leader. Let's wrap it up with a few deep cleansing breaths. Breathing deep into your nose, down into your lungs. Hold that and relax. Letting it go nice and slow. One more. Deep into the nose, down into the lungs, expanding those lungs. Hold that and relax. And then as you're ready, slowly refocus your gaze or blink your eyes open. Come back and out of the practice. Will, thanks, brother. Always a pleasure. Great conversation. Yeah. Thank you so much for opening up the topic and bringing it to my attention as something we should discuss in Men Talking Mindfulness. Yeah. At first I wasn't sure how it would fit, but it fit beautifully, and I'm so thankful that you brought it to the table, man.
Oh, well, thanks for entertaining it, John. This is fun, and it was, looks like we'll probably do another one of these. I think it'd be a lot of fun, and please, guys, thank you. Anybody that's listening, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for being part of the show. Bring your comments. We're going to bring this back, and we can probably have a more engaging discussion with other people's situations that they've put themselves in as a leader or boss, or people they've experienced leader or boss, because that we work together as people, and we have these roles in our lives, and I think I like to appreciate that we're bringing this mindful twist to it.
Definitely.
I think it's really important. So thank you, John.
Man. And for
close it out,
audience,
John. Close it out.
Yeah, man. For our audience, thanks for tuning in. We are now on YouTube as well. So if you missed the show live, always check it out or share it on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel there. It's just Men Talking Mindfulness. Easy enough. Obviously, it is a podcast as well, and we'd love you to give us a review on the podcast and share it with your friends, your family, whoever needs to hear the topics that we discuss, which we believe is everyone, not just men. So, thanks again for tuning in. Will, thanks so much for the time and space, and have a great weekend, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, John. Have a great one. Peace, brother.
Thanks for joining Will and John on Men Talking Mindfulness. If you enjoyed the show, please like and share it with your friends and family, and please, we would appreciate a review too. Until next time, this has been Men Talking Mindfulness. Thanks for showing up.